So next steps for us are to develop a better safety net, what we call it, for people who fall through the cracks. Even employers don't like to see anybody fail. It's no fun to fire anybody. Anybody in HR knows that. But this program isn't about being soft and easy on people. It's about setting a standard, setting it high. One absence is allowed. If you're absent twice, you're out of the program. You lost your money, you can come back next time and apply. But there's a lot of people who don't even get to that point. They fail the CASAS test. For those of you who are familiar with that, it's a test to rank how well you are in math and reading and those kind of things. And so they have to have a score of 130 in math and reading in order to just interview for the program. And then the interview is basically like a job interview. The employers sit down, and if they wouldn't hire you based on that interview, they're not going to let you in the program because it'll just be a waste of their time and yours. And so a better safety net would be there's a lot of people who maybe don't meet those minimum qualifications of the CASAS test, but are great workers, have great work ethic, would be great employees, would be great at handling instructions and things, but for some reason or another they didn't have the education that they needed to pass the CASAS test. And so as a support network, WorkSource at Community College, we can do a better job of pooling resources together and developing a coordinated program for helping people who do want to be in this program but don't meet the minimum qualifications get qualified for that. Because I think there's quite a big pool of people that self-eliminate themselves because they think, well, I probably am not good enough to get into that program. And so we can generate more people into the program that way. So with that, I'm not sure if we're ending early or late. I don't see a clock anywhere. Maury?
Do you have programs to help people get through the interviews, at least at the beginning? Because some people, they may pass the test and they may just not interview well, but have a great work ethic, like you said. But interviews are tough for all of them.
Yeah.
So I can imagine people who are not really well trained.
We do. WorkSource has interview classes, but it's not as coordinated as well as it could be. And so this is something that as partner organizations we're going to continue to work on. For instance, once somebody has passed the CASAS test to the time they interview, it's usually like 2 to 3 days. What we do when we recruit for the classes, we'll hold a big kickoff session is what we call it. WorkSource opens up their doors after hours for a half an hour to an hour, depending on how many people show up. And the coordinator gives an overview of the program. We market it to the public that there's going to be an information session, and sometimes we have upwards of 50 to 100 people, sometimes as low as 25 that come in to learn about the program. And then right then and there, they can pay the $10 to take the assessment. And if they pass that assessment and enough of them, we get a big enough pool to run a class, we'll interview them 2 days later. And so within that time frame, there hasn't been as much follow-up as we could with the people who are interviewing to help them get better prepared. But the resources are there. We just have to make them work together. So those are all kind of things that we've learned along the way, seeing how we can do things better.
Yeah. Could you give us an idea of what it cost to run the program, what your expenses were, where your revenues came from, and then what the demographics of the workers were?
Okay. Initially, each company, and there was 11 of them initially, and Basic American was one of them. I think it might have been before Julie was there. They each pitched in $1,000. The EDC threw in some money, and the community college had I think it was the Perkins grant, funded a part-time position for the coordinator. So 20 hours a week, I think at $25 an hour. And so that initial money was used for printing some materials, doing some advertisements in a newspaper and things. And the way that our model works is we try to keep it self-sustaining. So the CASAS tests cost money to administer, the drug tests cost money to administer, and so a $15 fee to the students who interview as an application fee, and that helps to cover the cost of the drug screen. $10 helps to cover the cost of the CASAS test, and then each student pays $250 to be in the program. And so the first class we ran, we had 25 students. We maxed the class out, so that money came in. And then as those students are hired, each employer pays $300 per hire. And so that money goes back into the pool to kind of keep it self-sustaining. And every time a new employer wants to be a part of the consortium or the group, they pitch in $1,000 up front to help fund the program and keep it going.
We're at the early stages of trying to develop a similar program with some of our high-tech anchor tenants. And the areas that we're getting stuck on is really around the requirement to hire these people after they go through the program. And there's some hesitation on the industry's part about, well, if we're going to be required to place these people in one of our companies, then we're going to have to make a very stringent program. So how did you guys deal with that?
We
Managing the expectations of both
Yeah.
candidates as well as
we make sure that we don't guarantee anybody a job. However, you can see the numbers, the likelihood is very high. But tell everyone who comes through the program that we allow for what is called the J factor, the jerk factor. There's some people who test very well, who interview very well, but when you sit with them in a classroom or when you see them in a work environment, you realize this guy or this gal's a jerk and we don't want to hire him. So we tell them, if you're not a jerk and if you can get through the program, your chances of a job are very high. But the interview process is really kind of our screen, and people do slip through there. Julie and I were just talking this morning that there was someone that she thought, I wonder how they even got into the training program. And so it does happen, but the interview process is kind of our screen. And so that happens before they're accepted into the program, and not everybody who interviews gets into the program. 2 employers will sit down, and we'll have like 4 teams of 2 sometimes, and just run interviews for 4 or 6 hours. And the first class that we did, we had about 50 people interview, and only 27, I think, passed that interview, and then 2 of those dropped the program before it started. And so the interview process is pretty tough. I was surprised at the expectations that these employers have. Some people that I thought were clear shoo-in didn't pass the interview, and so that's kind of what they've used as the and they trust each other to interview well, and so that's what they've used to help alleviate their concerns, because there is no requirement for them to hire. What we tell them is that they get preferential hiring. So, and the HR managers and the people who do hire in all these companies know that when somebody comes in and gives them an application that has a pre-employment certificate attached to it, that automatically goes to the top of the pile and should be considered, because they've already met with the people at the company, they've put forth the effort that this is a company they want to work with, and so they automatically move up and get an interview. So I don't think that even of the people who weren't hired, some of those weren't hired because they didn't want to be hired. Like some of those who were just hoping for a job at BMW or at REC, and then some of the other ones never interviewed. We had a couple people who came through the program because they said, I wanted to see what it looked like inside those facilities. I said, is that all you wanted to see? Yeah, well, we could have set you up some tours. So, but I think that the hardest time that we've had kind of balancing those things is sometimes the students have expectations that they're going to take this 5-week training program and then get a $20 an hour job managing the maintenance department, and that's not the case either. We're really looking at $12 to $15 an hour entry-level jobs. Some people who've come through the program do have associate's degrees, and so they're able to place into a little higher positions because they do have some background in manufacturing and stuff. But for the most case, this is to help fill the entry-level positions where the employers have the most turnover, and to see the most people lose interest in working there. So. If there's no other questions, we put together a packet, and I believe it's available on the website, that includes tons of information about the program. It's got a couple of overviews of the program, one that we use when we visit with potential companies to be a part of the program, talking to them about how it can benefit them. The student brochure that sits at Big Bend Community College with the brochures for their accounting program, their nursing program and stuff. We've got a list of the minimum qualifications that we have for students to get into the program, a memorandum of agreement that the companies signed so that they can kind of all be on the same page, because, well, let's face it, in the food processing industry in Moses Lake, we were talking about French fries earlier, we've got 4 or 5 companies that make French fries, and they're technically in competition with each other, but they come together to work cooperatively to this program, and it's really been a huge success. to see the kind of collaboration that's going on. They're helping each other out with setting, determining practices for employees and stuff, and so that's really been good. We've got even the interview questions that we have for the students, a sample class calendar, and then also kind of a summary of the curriculum that is taught. Not too detailed, but enough to give you an idea of what our employers thought was necessary to be in the curriculum and kind of an outline of how that flows. So that's all available on the website and can kind of give you some more background information on how the program was set up and hopefully save you guys from some of the steps of reinventing what we did.